ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ 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 ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ।
ਧੰਨ ਧੰਨ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਗੁਰੂ ਰਾਮਦਾਸ ਜੀ ਸੱਚੇ ਪਾਤਸ਼ਾਹ। ਹਰ ਚੌਥੜੀ ਲਾਭ ਮਨ ਸਹਿਜ ਭਇਆ, ਹਰ ਪਾਇਆ ਬਲਰਾਮ ਜੀਓ। ਗੁਰਮੁਖ ਮਿਲਿਆ ਸੁਭਾਏ, ਹਰ ਮਨ ਤਨ ਮੀਠਾ ਲਾਇਆ ਬਲਰਾਮ ਜੀਓ। ਹਰ ਮੀਠਾ ਲਾਇਆ ਮੇਰੇ ਪ੍ਰਭ ਭਾਇਆ, ਅਨ ਦਿਨ ਹਰ ਲਿਵ ਲਾਈ। ਮਨ ਚਿੰਦਿਆ ਫਲ ਪਾਇਆ ਸੁਆਮੀ, ਹਰ ਨਾਮ ਵੱਜੀ ਵਧਾਈ। ਹਰ ਪ੍ਰਭ ਠਾਕੁਰ ਕਾਜ ਰਚਾਇਆ, ਧਨ ਹਿਰਦੈ ਨਾਮ ਵਿਗਾਸੀ। ਜਨ ਨਾਨਕ ਬੋਲੇ ਚੌਥੀ ਲਾਵੈ, ਹਰ ਪਾਇਆ ਪ੍ਰਭ ਅਵਨਾਸੀ। ਹਰ ਪ੍ਰਭ ਠਾਕੁਰ ਕਾਜ ਰਚਾਇਆ, ਧਨ ਹਿਰਦੈ ਨਾਮ ਵਿਗਾਸੀ। ਜਨ ਨਾਨਕ ਬੋਲੇ ਚੌਥੀ ਲਾਵੈ, ਹਰ ਪਾਇਆ ਪ੍ਰਭ ਅਵਨਾਸੀ। ਹਰ ਪਾਇਆ ਪ੍ਰਭ ਅਵਨਾਸੀ। ਆਓ ਸਾਰੇ ਬੁਲਾਓ ਫਤਿਹ। ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ, ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ। From today we're going to be looking at the second pankti. Guru Ramdas Ji Paatshah Ji saying to us in the second pankti that Gurmukh milya Subhaee, har man tan meetha laya Balram Jiyo. So coming on from that person that Guru Ramdas Ji Paatshah Ji is saying that has met Vaheguru Ji now, that is in Sahaj Avastha, man Sahaj Paya, har paya, that has actually gained Vaheguru Ji now, that has actually obtained Vaheguru Ji now. And then they speak about how was that done. They said that the Gurmukh, that person, Guru Ramdas Ji Paatshah Ji referred to as a Gurmukh, that's become one with Vaheguru Ji. And how did that Gurmukh obtain this avastha? This says Gurmukh milya Subhaee. The word Subhaee actually translates to, if we look at the literal translation of Subhaee, Subhaee means natural. Guru Ramdas Ji Paatshah saying that Gurmukh milya Subhaee. How did that Gurmukh get to meet Vaheguru Ji? They said they got to meet Vaheguru Ji with Subhaee. Subhaee means with when you do something which is effortless. When you do something with absolute ease. When you do something without even realizing that you're doing that thing. When the remembrance of God becomes so natural to somebody. They said that's how the Gurmukhs met Vaheguru Ji. And if we just take an example, and if we look at this, that Paatshah, if we want to try and understand what is it to be in that avastha, because that's another state of being. When somebody reaches that state of being in, when Paatshah Ji refers to it as Sahaj Subhaee. These words often come together too, Sahaj and Subhaee. So again, Subhaee, the word meaning Subhaee, meaning when you do something, when it becomes effortless for you. Remember in the beginning we spoke about taram, taram meaning when you have to make an effort to do something. So now Paatshah Ji saying, Kende Gurmukh milya Subhaee, har man tan meetha laya Balram Jiyo. But if we just take an example of somebody from our history that reached that avastha when something just becomes absolute natural for you. Guru Nanak Dev Ji Paatshah Ji is in Sultanpur. In Sultanpur, Guru Nanak Dev Ji Paatshah Ji is now, they've stayed there for a few years. And after even Guru Nanak Paatshah Ji actually running a business, running a shop, Guru Nanak Dev Ji Paatshah Ji goes into the Vai Nadi. They go into the Vai, that lake. Guru Nanak Dev Ji Paatshah Ji returns from that lake. After a few days, Guru Nanak Dev Ji Pacha Ji tells their family that they're going to be going now. When they go, Pacha Ji, and we refer to that as the Udasiyan. When Guru Nanak Dev Ji Pacha Ji goes out there and saves the world. As Bhai Gurdas Ji talks about that time that Baba dekhe dhyan tar, sab jalti prithvi dis ai. Bhai Gurdas Ji described that time when Guru Nanak Dev Ji Pacha Ji says that Baba dekhe dhyan tar, as Guru Nanak Dev Ji Pacha Ji looked deep inside. What could they see? What could they hear? Baba dekhe dhyan tar sab jalti prithvi dis ai, that they could hear people crying, that people's insides are on fire. Then Guru Nanak Dev Ji Pacha Ji actually turns around just to understand what is Subhaee, Gurmukh milya Subhaee. That how is it that a Gurmukh meets Waheguru Ji when it just becomes absolute effortless, absolute natural to somebody to think and to be in remembrance of Waheguru Ji. Guru Nanak Dev Ji turns around and says to their wife Mata Sulakhani Ji, and they say to Sulakhani Ji that now I'm going to be going. Mata Sulakhani Ji looks at Guru Nanak Dev Ji Pacha Ji and she says that now is just about time that we actually settle down. You was running a business, everything was going so well. So just now when everything became so smooth, everything's going so well, now you're telling us that you're going to be leaving. Mata Ji's Mata Sulakhani Ji's, their attachment, the strings of their attachment are being pulled here. She sends her two children forward to Guru Nanak Dev Ji Pacha Ji, Baba Shri Chand and Baba Lakshmi Das. They're very young at this point and they're crying because Mataji is saying to them that your father is going to leave, tell your father to remain and stay back. She said, look, we won't even ask you to do any work. She says, if you want to just sit here and do bhakti, you want to just sit here and meditate, you want to just sit here with sadhus, with saints, you want to sing God's praises all day, you want to sit here and talk about God to people, then sit here and do it. I promise you that I won't say anything to you. I won't ask you for anything. I won't ask you to go to work. Just, if you're just here physically, it'll put my mind at ease. Even though Mata Sulakhani Ji is saying all of this, Guru Nanak Dev Ji's Pacha Ji's children are wrapped around their legs. But Guru Nanak Dev Ji Pacha is saying, those that are out there crying as well and burning in pain of desires, Guru Nanak Dev Ji said, I can't not listen to those cries. There's somebody else standing amongst all of this as well. Gurmukh milya Subhaee, har man tan meetha laya Balram Jiyo. Amongst all of this, whilst this is happening, somebody else is standing there too. And a voice very quietly says, she said, how will I live without your darshan? How am I going to cope? It feels as if I even breathe because I get to see you. How am I going to bear that pain when you're gone? Guru Nanak Dev Ji Pacha Ji turns around and says to their beloved sister, Guru Nanak Dev Ji Pacha Ji says, oh my sister, because Bebe Ji was older than Guru Nanak Dev Ji Pacha Ji. And they said, Bebe Ji, oh my sister, they said, for you, you asked me with so much love. They said, the moment that you think of me, the moment that you remember me, they said, all you need to do is turn around and I'll be standing before you. Guru Nanak Dev Ji Pacha Ji say these words that Gurmukh milya Subhaee, say these words to Bebe Nanki. But we're trying to understand Gurmukh milya Subhaee, this word Subhaee, when something becomes so natural for you. Har man tan meetha laya Balram Jiyo, Guru Nanak Dev Ji Pacha Ji go out on their udasiyan. Bebe Nanki Ji, they keep this in their mind. And they say and they think within their mind that my brother told me that if I think of my brother, and then he will be standing before me and my brother will never lie. No matter how far he's gone, no matter where he's gone, I have faith in him. Mataji, Bebiji keeps this in her mind and she sits down. She sits down and she closes her eyes and she starts to think of her brother. She opens her eyes and she sees nobody standing in front of her. There's nobody standing before her eyes. She keeps doing this again and again. The next day comes, Mataji, Bebeji closes her eyes and she thinks in her mind, my brother told me, close your eyes and I'll be standing there before you. Bebeji turns round this time. She's looking everywhere in the room, but Guru Nanak Dev Ji Pacha is nowhere to be seen. Guru Nanak Dev Ji Paatshah Ji is out with Bhai Mardana Ji. Ek Baba Akal Roop, Duja Rababi Mardana. Just like Bhai Gurdas Ji described. They said there's one Rababi, there's one that played the Rabab, that beautiful stringed instrument. And they said, but who's the other one that is with Bhai Mardana? Kande Ek Baba Akal Roop. They said the other Baba is Akal Roop, is actually the form of Akal, that Waheguru Ji that is timeless. And out one day, Guru Nanak Dev Ji Paatshah Ji turns around and says to Bhai Mardana Ji, they told him to stop doing what they are doing. Why? Because back at Sultanpur, even though Guru Nanak Dev Ji Paatshah Ji is hundreds of miles away at this point, Bebe Nanaki Ji, she's thinking that how could it be? It can't be that my brother lied to me. It's just not possible that Guru Nanak Dev Ji could have lied to me. She says, I've got to be doing something wrong. The fault's got to be inside of me. And Gursikh Pyaro, if we want to walk forward in our life, that's the only way to walk forward. If we realize to look inside. Dadde dos na deo kise, dos krama apneya. Jo main kiya, so main paya. Dos na dije avarajana. If we realize that whatever I'm doing, it's due to my own actions, whatever I am receiving. Jo main kiya. That whatever I have done, jo main kiya, so main paya. That whatever is coming my way, whatever I am receiving, whatever is happening to me in my life, it's due to my own actions, what I've done to myself. That moment we can realize this, we might be able to walk forward. Nanak parke aapko ta parkh jaan, rog daru do mein bujje ta vaid sujan. Paatshah Ji saying, sab ke chakar mein bahar nahi, bahar tole so param pulahi. Paatshah Ji saying, we're going to wander around and feel lost if we're looking for the answers from outside. Bebe Nanaki Ji did everything right. At this moment, she looked inside and she's thinking, what is it that I'm doing wrong? How could it be that my brother doesn't be before my eyes when he said, if you remember me, I'll be standing there. She's lost in these thoughts. Bebe Nanaki Ji, and her mind just goes into this stillness. She just goes over. She starts to make prashada for her husband, Bhaiya Jairam Ji. Bhai Jairam Ji as well has got much love for Guru Nanak Dev Ji Sache Paatshah. He even said to her one day, he said that because of you, I've got a chance to be saved in this life as well. Bebe Nanaki Ji is standing before the stove. The fire is burning. The fire is burning through those logs. There's a tawa, there's a hot plate that Mataji is making prashada for her husband. But one day, many days have passed now, but one day the prashada, it balloons up so beautifully. As the air fills into that prashada, into that roti, Bebe Nanaki Ji, with absolute ease, no effort, not thinking with her mind. But what happens? Gurmukh milya Subhaee, har man tan meetha laya Balram Ji, Gurmukh milya Subhaee. With absolute ease, Mataji is thinking, she looks at that prashada, and now it's not her mind, but instead her heart says from inside, only if today Guru Nanak was here, only if today my brother, my beloved brother was here today to eat this prashada. She's not thinking now. It's not a jugati, it's not a method now. Because her heart is crying out. She looks at that prashada, but all she can see through that prashada is her beloved brother. She's saying, only today, if my brother was here to eat this prashada. And Gursikh Pyareo, on the other side, is Bhai Mardana Ji and Guru Nanak Dev Ji Paatshah Ji. And at that moment, that Bebe Nanaki Ji from inside is saying, only if my brother was here today to eat this prashada. In that same moment, Guru Nanak Dev Ji Paatshah Ji कहते चल मरदानिया कहते उथों कहते हुण अज कहते सुल्तानपुर तो कहते अज प्रेम दी खिच पै गई है मरदानिया आपां चलीए कहते मरदाना जी pick up your rabab, pick up your stringed instrument and let's go today. Why? Because I can feel the pull of love. Mu lalan syon preet bani. I can feel that somebody's heart is filled with love and is thinking about me. That moment, Gursikh Pyareo, Guru Nanak Dev Ji Paatshah Ji is hundreds of miles away, but Bebe Nanaki Ji, her eyes are filled with tears. She turns around and she's thinking, only if he was here today. and she's going to go over to give that prashada to her husband. But what does she know? That today she's dropped all of her methods. Little does she know that she's stopped thinking with this mind. Little does she know that today, because she's thought of her guru, she's thought of her brother from her heart, she turns around and who does she see standing before her? In her doorway, Guru Nanak Dev Ji Pachan Mardana Ji standing there in an instant of being, even though physically they were hundreds of miles away. Guru Sikh Pyaro, people don't believe that these things can happen today. But you can only experience these things when you love your guru from your heart. And even today, we're thinking, how can that happen that Guru Nanak is hundreds of miles away physically? And Bebe Nanak is thought of Guru Nanak, and that instant Guru Nanak Dev Ji is standing before her. Guru Sikh Pyaro, that moment you have Shraddha inside of yourself. Like I've said many of times, Bhai Lehna Ji, one thing that they had different to everybody else, they had faith inside of their heart. They had that devotional faith. They had so much faith inside of their heart. If Guru Nanak Pacha Ji said that Bhai Lehna, that sweets will drop out of this tree, then Bhai Lehna Ji's devotion was so much, their faith was so much in Guru Nanak that sweets did drop out of those trees. It's about faith. Guru Nanak was standing before Bebe Nanaki Ji in that moment. And we're thinking, how can this happen? We've got to have that love in our heart. And today we can too feel that Gur Mere Sang Sada Hai Nale. These pangtiyan can be looked at so many ways. But there's a way, one day you will feel this such an experience inside of your own hearts that you will never feel alone. You will feel too that Jaka meet sajan hai samiyan, tis janko kohka ki kamiyan. You will feel one day too that you've got a forever friend inside of your heart, and you never will feel alone. You will feel the presence that Gur Mere Sang. You will actually be able to say one day, you know what? I don't ever feel alone. I actually do feel the Guru beside me. Bebe Nanaki, what happened to her that day was, Guru Sikh Pyaro, that Gurmukh milya Subhaee. That's what it means, Subhaee. When you don't even know what you're doing, but you're doing it. That avastha is that when Pacha Ji talk about as well, about the Bhagats. The Pacha Ji ne Bhagtan bare bhi eh gal aakhi na. The Sache Pacha ne kya kehinde, Bhagtan ki chaal nirali. Chaal means way. And Pacha is saying nirali. Nirali meaning is unique, is distinct, is separate to the rest of the world. But just before we look at that, Guru Sikh Pyaro, we're just going to take another example from Gurbani. We're thinking that Bebe Nanaki, is it really possible for this to happen? Guru Arjan Dev Ji Pacha Ji, they tell us every day in Rehnsabhai Ji ki Bani, Pacha Ji kehinde ude ood ave sa kosan tis pache bachre chharya tin kavan khalave kavan chugave man meh simran karya. What does this actually mean? We read these words every day. The Pacha Ji saying ude ood ave sa kosan. This word sa means hundreds. It's plural. If we say it with a bindi sa meaning hundreds here, can they ude, who is Pacha Ji talking about here? They're talking about flamingos. They're saying what happened, what do these flamingos do? They've just given birth to these beautiful children, to these beautiful babies. And can they ood, what do they do? But they fly away, and they come away hundreds of miles away from the children. Ude ood ave sa kosan, hundreds of miles away they fly away from their children. Ude ood ave sa kosan tis pache. What do they do? Tis pache. Pache means they leave behind. Pache means behind. They leave their children behind. Can tis pache bachare. Bachare means children. Those flamingos, they leave their small children away behind. Can tis pache bachare chharya. Chharya means shadge, leave behind. They left them behind. Tis pache bachare chharya. And then Pacha Ji saying, can tin kavan khalave. Who's going to feed those little children that they've just given birth to? Who's going to feed those? Can tin kavan khalave, kavan chugave. How are they going to learn to peck? How are they going to know how to pick up food and put it into their mouth? Guru Arjan Dev Ji Pacha Ji said that Kudrat is such, Balhari Kudrat vasya tera ant na jai lakhya. that Akal Purkh ji's creation is so amazing that tin kavan khilave, kavan chagave, man meh simran karya. How does that mother teach those children how to eat? How does that mother make sure that food gets into those children's mouth? It's not that that mother doesn't care. It's not that that mother's left him behind. That mother's dhyan shakti is so much. Simran here means remembrance. Remembrance here meaning that the power of being able to focus from inside. Man meh simran karya. As the mother, that flamingo has that focus and remembers her children from inside, from her heart. Man meh simran karya, within her mind, she's able to teach them how to eat food, how to peck, being hundreds of miles away. That's the power of a mother. That's the power of Qudrat, how Waheguru Ji has made this complete, this entire creation. If a flamingo, Gursikh Pyareo, can be hundreds of miles away and still she's got the power with that thought, with all that simran, to be able to teach her children still how to peck and eat food, being hundreds of miles away. Gursikh Pyareo, if Bebe Nanaki can be in Sultanpur and Guru Nanak Dev Ji Pach could be hundreds of miles away traveling, how can it not be that the Guru is so powerful, that Samrat Guru Sir Hath Tareo, that the all-powerful Guru? How can it not be that if somebody like Bebe Nanaki that has love in her heart for a Guru, for a brother, how can it not be that he won't be there with it in an instant? And that means that can happen for us too. If we have that love like Bebe Nanaki, just like those flamingos have that power, that man mein simran karya, if we have that simran from our heart, that Gurmukh milya Subhaee, har man tan meetha laya Balram Jiyo, that Gursikh Pyaro, we can pull our Guru into our heart as well today. Just for us to understand this avastha of Subhaee, what does this Subhaee word actually, what is it? The Guru Amar Das Ji Pach explaining to us asal vich who is in this avastha, and they're saying in this avastha is Bhagtan ki Chal Nirali. They said the Bhagats are in this avastha. They said they are separate to the rest of the world. Remember this, Guru Sahib Ji didn't say that the Siddha de nahi Chal Nirali ke Sache Paatshah Ji nahi, but look how much power they've got. They've got all these miraculous powers, these 18 Siddhiyan Paatshah Ji talk about. They can fly. They can disappear. They can make their body disappear when people can't even see them anymore. They can pick things up that are miles away from them. They can pull things forward to them. They've got all these powers, but Paatshah Ji didn't say that their way is separate to the world. Remember, they've given up the world. If you think about it, they've given up attachment too. They've run away from attachment. But they've given up these things. Why didn't Sache Paatshah Ji, why didn't Guru Amar Das Ji Pach say that they are unique? Why did they say that the Bhagats are unique? Because it's a Bhagtan ki Chal Nirali, Chala Nirali, Bhagtan keri Bikham Marg Chalana. They said the Marg, the path that the Bhagats walk, they said it's very difficult. Bikham Yaho Marg. It's a very difficult path to walk, that path. Gurmukh Milya Subhaee, the path of being, get into that avastha of being in Subhaee. Bikham Marg Chalana, Lab Lob Ankar Taj Trishna. Kende Lab Lob Ankar Taj Trishna. Taj means to give up something. What have they done? They've given up lab. They've given up the taste of their tongue. That's what lab means. Kende jeeb de chaske unhone chhad ditte ya. Bhai Professor Sahib Singh ne lab da arth eme kitta ya, jeeb de chaske. The pleasure of the tongue. Kende lab lob. Lob meaning greed. Greed for the padarat, for the possessions of this world. Kende lab lob ankar meaning pride. Taj meaning to give up. Taj Trishna. Trishna meaning desires for this world. They've given up all these things. Bahut nahi bolana. It's not that they just talk about these things. It's not even that they talk about giving up these things. It's not that they keep saying that I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. Because a lot of us, we do that very often in our lives. We talk about getting up Amrita Velle. We talk about giving up something. We talk about speaking sweetly. But the Paatshah Ji, Guru Amar Das Ji Paatshah is saying, the Bhagats, it's not that they just spoke about these things. Bahut nahi bolana. Eh nahi ke boli gaya ke asi hankar chhad dena, asi lob chhad dena, asi lab chhad dena. Nahi Gursikh Pyaro, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਚਾਲ ਨਿਰਾਲੀ ਸੀ. ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਅਸਲ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਹ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਛੱਡਿਆ, ਦਿਖਾਇਆ ਸੰਸਾਰ ਨੂੰ ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਨਿਰਾਲੇ ਨੇ. ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਭਗਤਾਂ ਕੀ ਚਾਲ ਨਿਰਾਲੀ, ਚਾਲਾਂ ਨਿਰਾਲੀ, ਭਗਤਾਂ ਕੇਰੀ ਬਿਖਮ ਮਾਰਗ ਚਲਣਾ, ਲਬ ਲੋਭ ਅੰਕਾਰ ਤਜ ਤ੍ਰਿਸ਼ਨਾ, ਬਹੁਤ ਨਾਹੀ ਬੋਲਣਾ, ਖੰਨੇ ਹੋ ਤਿੱਖੀ ਵਾਲ ਹੋ ਨਿੱਕੀ, ਇਹ ਤੇ ਮਾਰਗ ਜਾਣਾ. Khanneo means a khanda, a double-edged sword. ਕਹਿੰਦੇ this path, to walk on this path, ਕਹਿੰਦੇ it's so sharp, it's so fine. And why does Pachaji describe this path to be like a double-edged sword? Because you have to get this path so right, no matter which way you go. Because it's sharp. Sometimes we think it's sharp because I have to give up something in this life. Giving up greed, becoming beyond greed, we think that's sharp and we think that's difficult. But why is Pacha called it double-edged? Why is it even so much more difficult than just giving it up? ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਪਾਤਸ਼ਾਹ ਜੀ ਕਹਿਣ ਲੱਗੇ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਖੰਨੇ ਹੋ ਤਿੱਖੀ ਵਾਲ ਹੋ ਨਿੱਕੀ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ it's finer than a strand of a hair if you want to walk on this path. That's how fine it is. Why is Pacha ji saying it's so difficult? And what was so unique that the Bhagats had this? ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਗੁਰ ਪ੍ਰਸਾਦੀ ਜਿਨੀ ਆਪ ਤਜਿਆ ਹਰ ਵਾਸਨਾ ਸਮਾਣੀ. That's what was so different about the Bhagats, because they had that avastha in their life. They had reached that sad Subhaee. Subhaee means when something becomes so natural that you don't even realize that you're doing it. Because there's many people in this world, they might give up certain foods, they might give up certain tastes, but they've not been able to give up that they've given up that taste. Until they don't tell 5 people when they're sitting down ਤੇ ਮੈਂ ਤਾਂ ਛੱਡ ਦਿੱਤੀਆਂ ਇਹ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਗੁਰਸਿੱਖ ਪਿਆਰ ਰਾਤ ਨੂੰ ਨੀਂਦ ਨਹੀਂ ਆਉਂਦੀ. They can't sleep at night until they're not able to tell somebody how much they've achieved by giving something up. And they'll say ਨਹੀਂ 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 ਮੈਂ ਤਾਂ ਹੁਣ ਖਾਣਾ ਹੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਬਾਹਰੋਂ, ਮੈਂ ਤਾਂ ਫਲਾਨੀ ਚੀਜ਼ ਹੁਣ ਮੈਂ ਤਾਂ ਹੱਥ ਨਹੀਂ ਲਾਉਣਾ, ਮੈਂ ਤਾਂ ਛੱਡ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਸਾਰਾ ਕੁਝ. ਪਰ ਉਹ ਤੋਂ ਇਹ ਨਹੀਂ ਛੱਡ ਹੋਇਆ ਕਿ ਮੈਂ ਛੱਡ ਦਿੱਤੀ ਉਹ ਚੀਜ਼. But they've not been able to give up what they've given up. That's what's unique. Subhaee means when you don't even know what you've given up. It's become so natural to you, you practice now. That's what was so amazing about the Bhagats. That Gur Prasadi Jini, with the Guru's grace, Jini Aap Tajya, they even let go of what they were doing. That was so amazing. That they had even given up greed, that they weren't even greedy anymore. They didn't have that thought in their mind that I need to tell people now. They didn't even have that thought in their mind that look what I've achieved and done. And we're not to say that just because we've given up something, for example, in our life that is negative, that isn't good. That doesn't mean that there's no point of giving that thing up if we're still thinking in our mind, if we can't help telling people. That doesn't mean, well, what's the point then? I might as well go back to doing that thing. No, because these are stages and we've gone through that. Everything happens in stages, because remember we're talking about the 4th alarm now. This is the 4th state. So this is talking about now that avastha when you become one with Vaheguru Ji. That avastha is like this when you don't even realize. That's what happened to Bebe Nanki that day. She didn't realize, she didn't plan it, she didn't think it, she didn't try to go through a method and think about Guru Nanak Pacha Ji that day, but it just happened for her. Because the truth is, Guru Sikh Pyaro, that so many people today, their focus more is in methods today. But what should our focus have been instead? What should we have fallen into? And but how can we fall into that? And what is that we need to be doing instead of being focused on methods instead? So we spoke about Bhagats here. And Bhagat is that person, that Guru Prasadi Jini Aap Tajya, that lets go of what they have let go of. Har Vasana Samani. Vasana means the desire. The desire is now only Hari, is only Vaheguru Ji. They have no other Vasana. They have no other desire now. But if we want to look at an example of an actual Bhagat that is showing us this in his life, and then Pai Gurdas Ji tell us about that Bhagat, that what does it mean to be in that avastha of Subhaee. ਤਾਂ ਭਾਈ ਗੁਰਦਾਸ ਜੀ ਕਹਿਣ ਲੱਗੇ, ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਸੁਨ ਪ੍ਰਤਾਪ ਕਬੀਰ ਦਾ ਦੂਜਾ ਸਿੱਖ ਹੋਆ ਸੈਣ ਨਾਈ. ਭਾਈ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਭਾਈ ਗੁਰਦਾਸ ਜੀ ਕਹਿਣ ਲੱਗੇ, ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਸੁਨ ਪ੍ਰਤਾਪ ਕਬੀਰ ਦਾ ਦੂਜਾ ਸਿੱਖ ਹੋਆ ਸੈਣ ਨਾਈ. ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਐਜ਼ ਭਗਤ ਸੈਣ ਜੀ, ਭਗਤ ਕੋਲ ਸੈਣ ਜੀ, ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਐਜ਼ ਭਗਤ ਸੈਣ ਜੀ heard the glory of ਭਗਤ ਕਬੀਰ ਜੀ, ਕਹਿੰਦੇ he became ਦੂਜਾ ਸਿੱਖ ਹੋਆ ਸੈਣ ਨਾਈ. He became the ਦੂਜਾ ਸਿੱਖ, the second Sikh. Not of Bhagat Kabir Ji, because remember, listen to the words carefully. They're saying that he heard the glory of Kabir Ji, but then he became the second Sikh. So the first Sikh was Bhagat Kabir Ji of who? Of Bhagat Ramanand Ji. Bhagat Ramanand Ji was the guru of Bhagat Kabir Ji. So then Bhagat Sain Ji also became a disciple of Bhagat Ramanand Ji. after hearing the glory of Bhagat Kabir ji. And they said, what did he used to do? What was his nature like? Kende prem bhagat rati kara. He used to do something called prem bhagat. But if we look at the way the word bhagat is spelled here in this pangti, it's spelled with the sahari. Just before the tatta is spelled with the sahari, that means it's actually talking about bhakti. So when you see the word bhagat without sahari, it's talking about the devotee. So it's talking about the actual bhagat. But when it's spelled with the sahari, even though you pronounce it the same, you pronounce it as bhagat, but then it's talking about the devotion. So it's talking about bhakti. And this is what was Bhagat Sain Ji's devotion like. Kende prem bhagat rati kare. Kende he used to be in this love-filled devotion for God when? Kende rati. Rati means amrita vela. Rati means amrita vela, that fourth section of the night. And whenever it comes up in Gurbani, ta kende rati kare. He would do his bhakti, he would devote himself lovingly to Akal Purkh Ji during that time. That time, pinni ranadiye chamkan tare. Kende jaghe sant jana mere ram pyare. Kende when the stars are twinkling in the sky. Kende pinni ranadiye chamkan. Kende the stars are sparkling in the sky. Pinni ranadiye. Pinni means when the night is dew. When it's wet, kende pinni ranadiye. Ran means night. Chamkan tare. Kende jaghe sant jana. Kende who's awake at that time? Jaghe sant jana. Those humble servants are awake at that time. Jaghe sant jana mere ram pyare. Guru Sahib is saying those are the beloveds of Ram. Mere ram pyare. Those awaken at that time. And that time, Bhagat Sain Ji also used to awaken as well. Kende, but what did they used to do? When the day came out, when the sun came out, kende, then Bhagat Sain Ji used to go to work. Kende palke raj dware jai. Then they used to go to the king's court and go and do their work. Because the work that Bhagat Sain Ji used to do, they used to go and do seva of the king. That means he would massage the king. He would be in charge of taking care of the king, choosing his clothes, to whatever it be. All those kind of duties Bhagat Sain Ji was in charge of. But one day what happened? And but before we look at Bhagat Sain Ji, but just looking at this, that prema bhagat, this prema bhagati, this love-filled devotion. Again, I say again and again that people have fallen into that trap of risa kare nadiyan jo sev hai dar khadiyan. It's become more about copying other people and thinking, if I sit in a certain posture, if I do this, if I breathe a certain way, that's what it is. That's going to get me to God. But that's not the way our Guru is talking about. Our Guru Sahib Ji is talking about, and they are telling us to fall into prema bhakti, into this love-filled devotion. That's what Bhagat Sain Ji had in his life. And I think very often, and I think we're so much into, our focus is so much into like methods now on how to do something. And I often think, but if I was to be able to ask somebody like Bhai Taru Singh a question, if we used to be able to go back during that time, and if we used to say to Bhai Taru Singh Ji, that can I hear the voice of your heart? You do whatever you do. Bhai Taru Singh Ji, what was their life about? Bhai Taru Singh Ji served other Gursikhs. Those Gursikhs that were living in jungles. Those Gursikhs whose lives were in danger. If they were found, they would be killed instantly. But Bhai Sahib Ji would risk their own life and they'd go and feed them. They'd have less to eat. They wouldn't have the best food for themselves. There was their mother, there was their sister, but instead, the best food they saved for the Gursikhs. But look at today, even somebody like myself, if I had to give charity, I think about giving the less off thing. I'll have the best food for myself, but when I need to give to somebody else, I'll think, well, they've not got anything anyway. So even if I give them this, that's enough for them. Well, they've not really got much decent clothes anyway. If I weren't to give them, they're not going to have any anyway. So even if I was to give them my old one, at least I'm giving them something. Our minds play so many tricks on us. But no, not by. If you read the history, if you read Ratan Singh Pangu, he actually writes that no, the way he served the Gursikhs, they said they own them. Bhai Sahib Ji's mother, Bhai Sahib Ji's sister, and Bhai Sahib Ji themselves, they wore tatty clothes themselves, but they gave the Khalsa the best of the best to wear. They gave them the best of the best foods, but they ate less for themselves. What was this Bhai Sahib like? He knew that if he got caught saving them, he would be killed too. Not only was he saving those Gursikhs, but one day, a crying Muslim knocked on his door. Bhai Sahib ji said, why are you so distressed? Why are you in so much pain? He said, I'm traveling. He said, because my daughter was kidnapped, a Muslim man. He said, my daughter was kidnapped. He said, I went. He goes, one of the local governors of one of the villages, he's kidnapped my daughter. Why? What is her crime? Her crime is that she's so beautiful. Her beauty is her crime. He's picked her up due to her beauty. I went back. I begged him. I begged him to give my daughter back and he refused. I went to the door. I went to the court of Lahore as well. I was refused from there as well. There's nobody to hold my hand. Ab hum chali Thakur pe haar, he's lost. He said, I've lost. He said he didn't know that he's come to ask. He wasn't even there to ask for help from Bhai Sahib. He was at Bhai Taru Singh's house. Why? Because back in them days, it was known that if you were ever traveling and raat pegi, or now it's night, you know that you can go and you can find a Gursikh's house because they will keep you for the night. All you used to have to ask was, you could go into a village and you could ask the people of that village, is there a Gursikh's house here? Why? Because they know if they knock on a Gursikh's house, they will never say no to them. They will give them a bed to sleep. They will give them food to eat. He went there for a night's sleep. He didn't go there to ask him for help. He didn't know what type of Gursikh Bhai Taru Singh was. He went into Bhai Taru Singh's house because he was so distressed. Bhai Taru Singh Ji looked at him. They knew he was distressed, but they gave him food first. They gave him food, they let him eat, then they looked at him. They sat him down. They said, now tell me what's wrong. Tell me your pain that's inside of you. But if we look at most of the world, just most of the world, no matter who we go and put our hands forward to, they'll be full of their own pains. But Bhai Taru Singh said, tell me your pain. He said, my daughter's been kidnapped by one of the local governors. Not expecting that Bhai Taru Singh would actually be pained as well. Bhai Taru Singh Ji took it upon himself like his own daughter's been taken, like his own sister's been taken. He didn't think she's a Muslim. I was speaking to a great scholar not long ago, and she's written an amazing book about the struggle of the Sikhs, of the Khalsa Panth, of the Khalistani movement. And she was in a camp and she gave a talk at that camp. A very inspiring woman. Her name is Cynthia Mahmood. You can go and read her book as well, Faith of Nation. There's a short interview, a video on our YouTube channel. It's only about 10 minutes long. Type in a name and type in basis of Sikhi and I recommend for you to watch that video of what she's actually experienced and gone through. She goes out to other countries and lives amongst those people that are struggling for a cause and lives with them in their shoes to see what they are going through, what they're experiencing, what they are feeling. Why are they fighting for that cause? She lived with a lot of those Khalistanis that were fighting for Khalistan after 84, and most of them, they all got shaheed by the time of 95. But she got to stay with most of them and have dialogue with them. And we said to her, the group said to her, she gave a talk to about 120 campers there. And one of the main questions to her was, they said, with your experience, with being with them, what should the Khalsa do now? What's our way forward now? Assi hone ki kariye? And her reply was, they said, if the Khalsa becomes what the Khalsa used to be, she says, if the Khalsa becomes like people like Bhai Taru Singh again, that don't only cry out for our own pain of what's happening to Sikhs, but if the Khalsa feels the same pain when you hear something about a Muslim daughter, when you feel the same pain when you hear about a Christian daughter or sister, and you make the same amount of noise for them, and you feel pained and you risk your life the same amount that you would do for the Khalsa Panth, she said that day I think we're going to start moving forward and we're going to get somewhere and we're going to get something as well. Bhai Taru Singh Ji took it upon himself to go and rescue his daughter. He brought her back. When he was arrested, Bhai Taru Singh could have been bailed out. They collected the bail money that it was going to take to bail Bhai Sahib Ji out. When they put that bail money forward, Bhai Sahib Ji said, they said, I've not done no crime. They've captured me for no reason. They said, if you give this money to bail me out, it's going to look as if I've actually done something. Why would I take so much money of the Sangat? Let my Shaheedi become an example to the world. And at that moment, when I think about Bhai Sahib Ji refusing to be bailed out when he could have been bailed out, because he knows that Brahm Gyani sad jeeve nahi marta, that Brahm Gyani lives forever. That naam raheo, sadhu raheo gur, gobind, that a sadhu remains. That Bhai Taru Singh has still remained up until today. That naam raheo, sadhu raheo, Gursikh pyareo. There's a Singh sitting today in the Sangat as well that read Bhai Taru Singh's Jeevan about how he kept steadfast and he didn't give up his faith. Man na dige tan kahe ko daraye. That Charn Kamal chit raheo samaye, that he remained firm. And today Bhai Taru Singh is still changing people's lives. Why? Because he's remained firm then. Bhai Taru Singh is such a Gursikh pyaro, so steadfast. He said no to that money. And we was talking about Gurmukh milya Subhaee. We was talking about that Prem Bhagat. Rati kare that Bhagat Sain Ji. They had Prema Bhakti in their heart. And today we focus so much into methods. And I feel many of times, if I was to go to Bhai Taru Singh during that moment when they refused to take that bail money, if I could hear the voice of Bhai Taru Singh, that what is Bhai Taru Singh Ji's inside saying, then I always feel that Bhai Taru Singh Ji's inside will be saying, Mu lalan syo preet bani, todi na tute, shori na shoote, aisi mado khinch tani. And I feel that that's the voice that I will hear from Bhai Taru Singh Ji's heart. That Bhai Taru Singh Ji's heart will be saying Mu. Mu means me. Mu lalan syo preet bani. Lalan means beloved. Preet bani. Bhai Taru Singh Ji's inside heart will be saying that I've got love between, there is love now between me and Waheguru Ji. There is love between me and my Guru. Having Bani means a two-way relationship. Bani means Bhai Taru Singh Ji's heart would be saying that there's not only love in my heart for my Guru, but I can feel that there's love in my Guru's heart for me too. That mu lalan syo preet bani. They said this love is so much now that todi na tute. That there's nothing that can break this love now, even if somebody tries to break it. And they're given the example. How have they shown this love to be? What is the example that they've used? Todi na tute, shori na shoote, aisi mado khinch tani, as like a tani. Tani means string. Khinch. Khinch comes from the word kashish. Kashish means when something's got strength. When something Gursikh pyareo can endure something. Bhai Taru Singh had so much love for the Guru from inside of his heart. And what does it mean to have love for the Guru? What does it mean to have love for Waheguru Ji? What does it mean when when Guru Sahib Ji says to us that ho sabna ki rehn ka ta aao hamare paas? What does it mean when you become the dust of awe? What does it mean to have love for God? It means even if a Muslim comes crying into your house, and even when he tells your story to you, that your heart is pained then as well, because you have love. As much as love you have for Waheguru Ji, Akal Purkh, for your Guru, you have love for that Muslim man that is sitting in front of your eyes. You have as much love for his daughter that has been kidnapped that you have for God, that you have for your Guru. You have as much love that you have for your next door neighbor. For everybody to have that avastha is very difficult, but we're talking about the Chauthi Laav today. We're talking about the fourth state of mind. Gurmukh milya Subhaee, har man tan meetha laya Balram Jiyo. Todi na tute, shori na shoote, aisi mado khinch tani. They're saying it's like their love is like a string, but a string that's got kashish. That when you pull, it's got so much pull, you can pull it and pull it, but todi na tute, you can try and break it, but you can try and pull it, but it's not going to break now because it's so strong. that love, that bond. Todi na tute, shuri na shoote. They said now the grip, shuri means you can't let go of it. The grip is so tight. They said the grip is so tight now, no matter how much somebody tries to pull this love, this string between me and God, this string between me and my Guru, people can try and pull this now. They said, but shuri na shoote, you're not going to be able to pull it, you're not going to be able to get it out of my hand now. And I feel that if we today ask Bhai Taru Singh's heart, what is Bhai Taru Singh's heart saying? He won't be saying that this is the jugti, this is the method. Bhai Taru Singh's heart won't be saying this is the way to cross your legs, this is the way to breathe. Bhai Taru Singh will be saying this is the way. If you've got this much love for your Guru, then you will get to God. Gurmukh milya Subhaee, har man tan meetha, laya Balram jiyo. We was talking about Bhagat Sain Ji. Bhagat Sain Ji, that prem bhagat rati kare. And they sang that palke raj dware jai, that they would spend the night, meaning Amrit Vela, sitting in love for Waheguru Ji, for Akal Purkh. They said, but what happened one day? They said Bhagat Sain Ji had some visitors. Gurmukh milya Subhaee. They had some visitors, and those visitors, by Gurdas Ji, referred to as Sants. They kende aaye Sant prahune, Kirtan hoa rehnsabhai. Kende one day, kende ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਪ੍ਰਾਹੁਣੇ ਆ ਗਏ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਘਰੇ ਭਗਤ ਸੈਣ ਜੀ ਦੇ ਪ੍ਰਾਹੁਣੇ, meaning they had visitors. ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਆਏ ਸੰਤ ਪ੍ਰਾਹੁਣੇ, and who are those visitors? They said they are sants. Saints came to the house. ਕਹਿੰਦੇ what did they do? ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਤਾਂ ਪ੍ਰਸ਼ਾਦਾ ਪਾਣੀ ਛਕਾਇਆ, ਸਾਰਾ ਕੁਝ ਕੀਤਾ ਭਗਤ ਸੈਣ ਜੀ ਨੇ. They gave him prasada, gave him food, but then they sat. Those sants, they started to do kirtan. ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਆਏ ਸੰਤ ਪ੍ਰਾਹੁਣੇ, ਕੀਰਤਨ ਹੋਆ rehnsabhai. And the kirtan happened for how long? Ran means night, sabhai means sab, coming from the word all. They're saying that kirtan took place all night. Sari raat kende kirtan hoya with those sadhus. Guru Nanak Sache Paatshah Ji vi apni bani andar ek benti karde ne. Guru Sahib Ji saying, kende that I've got this benti from inside. And Paatshah Ji saying, what is that benti that I've got? And they're saying, listen, Waheguru Ji, kende sun benanti swami. Kende listen to this request. Oh Waheguru Ji, kende sun benanti swami apne. Oh my Waheguru Ji, listen to this one request. Kende what is this one request? Kende Nanak eho sukh mange. Kende I am asking for this sukh. I'm asking for this peace. For this happiness I ask for. What is that happiness that Guru Sahib Ji is asking for? Kende Nanak eho sukh mange, jeh kirtan tera sadhu gaave, teh mera man lage. Kende jeh kirtan tera sadhu gaave. Guru Nanak Paatshah Ji is asking for this. This is their request to God. They saying kende sun bananti swami apne. Kende eh meri ek benti suno, O Waheguru Ji, O Akal Purkh Ji. Kende Nanak eho sukh mange. ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਜਹ ਕੀਰਤਨ ਤੇਰਾ ਸਾਧੂ ਗਾਵੇ. ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਤੇਰਾ ਕੀਰਤਨ ਕੋਈ ਸਾਧੂ ਗਾਉਂਦਾ ਹੋਵੇ ਨਾ, ਕਹਿੰਦੇ where a sadhu is sitting there and singing your praise. ਕਹਿੰਦੇ what is a sadhu? ਕਹਿੰਦੇ 9 ਦਰਵਾਜ਼ੇ ਸਾਧ ਸਦਾਇਤ ਭਾਈ ਗੁਰਦਾਸ ਜੀ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਸਾਧੂ ਹੀ ਉਹ ਆ, ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਜਿਹਨੇ ਆਪਣੇ 9 ਦਰਵਾਜ਼ੇ ਨੂੰ ਸਾਧ ਕੀਤਾ. ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਉਹ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਕੀਰਤਨ ਗਾਵੇ ਨਾ, that person that has controlled their 9 gates of their body, that person that has no other desire other than God. When you sit amongst those sadhus, those saints, when they are doing kirtan, jeh kirtan tera sadhu gaave tah mera man lage. Guru Nanak Dev Ji Paatshah Ji kende mera man otthe lag jave. They said, I want my mind to attach to that place where the sadhu sing kirtan, because I know when the sadhu sings a kirtan, when somebody that has no other desire other than Waheguru Ji, they said, I know my mind will fall into that as well, of wanting Waheguru Ji as well. Bhagat Sain Ji was privileged enough to be amongst those that were actually in that state of mind. But remember, ek gal aap yaad rakhiye, ithe bhaਵੇਂ ਭਾਈ ਗੁਰਦਾਸ ਜੀ ਨੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਸਾਰੀ ਰਾਤ ਲੰਘ ਗਈ, that the whole night passed. ਗੁਰਪ੍ਰਸਾਦੀ ਜਿਨੀ ਆਪ ਤਜਿਆ, ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਨੇ ਆਪ ਛੱਡ ਦਿੱਤਾ. ਭਾਈ ਭਗਤ ਸੈਣ ਜੀ ਦੇ, in Bhagat Sain Ji's mind, not once did it come that I've sat all night. Not once did it come in Bhagat Sain Ji's mind that I'm going to sit all night. Bhagat Sain Ji didn't realize that they had sat all night. That's what it means, Gurmukh milya Subhaee. Subhaee means when you just do something absolute effortlessly, when you don't even realize what you're doing. बैठे जरूर भगत सैन जी, पर बैठे किहड़ी अवस्था विच उन्होंने पता ही नहीं लगा कि सारी रात लंघ गई है, because they even missed work, going to work that morning. Because Bhai Gurdas ji talk about the कहंदे छड्ड ना सके संत जन, कहंदे भगत सैन जी, they couldn't give up, they couldn't leave those sants. It was just such a pull there. छड्ड ना सके संत जन राज द्वार ना सेव कमाई. They didn't go and do their job. कहंदे पर होया की? But what happened instead? तो कहन लगे भाई गुरदास जी, कहंदे सैन रूप हर जाए कै आया राणे नोरी जाई. कहंदे सैन रूप हर जाए कै. Even though Gursikh Pyaru that Bhagat Sain Ji didn't physically make it to work, but when Bhagat Sain Ji did make it to work eventually, they were so worried that I'm going to get sacked, and the Raja is there standing there to give Bhagat Sain Ji gifts that day, and Bhagat Sain Ji said, are they playing a trick on me? I've missed work today. I should be getting scolded. I thought I'm going to get sacked. But the Raja is standing here today with gifts in his hands. The Raja is there standing, putting a necklace in my neck today. What is happening? The Raja कहने लगा Bhagat Sain Ji ਨੂੰ, कहंदे तू मैनू अज रजा दिता. कहंदे the way you made me feel happy today, the way you satisfied me today, कहंदे never have you massaged me like this before. Bhagat Sain Ji shaking his head and he said, are they playing a joke on me? But before Bhagat Sain Ji even said, I didn't come to work, Bhagat Sain Ji realized, just like Bhai Gurdas Ji saying, that Sain Roop Har Jaike, that God took form of Bhagat Sain Ji and went and massaged the Raja that day, Akal Purkh Ji themselves. And what does it mean that they were able to see Bhagat Sain Ji in Rab that day? Because remember, Bhagat Sain Ji, Gurmukh milya Subhaee, they had met God and become one with God in that moment throughout that night. So there is no difference between God and Bhagat Sain Ji at that moment. Gurmukh milya Subhaee, har man tan meetha laya Balram Jiyu. And that's what it is. Sometimes Guru Sahib Ji saying that man hat kine na payo, sab thakke karm kamaye. Guru Amardas Ji Paatshah Ji di Bani ਕਹਿਣ ਲੱਗੇ, ਕਹਿੰਦੇ man hat kine na payo. ਕਹਿੰਦੇ somebody that is doing something with a stubborn mind and sitting there with a stubborn mind and saying, if I sit for 6 hours, then that's what's going to get me to God. It's not wrong to be sitting throughout the night and listening to Kirtan. Don't feel that that's the direction this is going. But he's talking about a particular avastha here. It's talking about that's not what is going to actually get us to merge with God. It might help us to move forward. It might help us to break away from certain habits, from going to certain places and instead being there. But it's not with our stubborn mind when our mind is actually in our knees. Our mind is actually in the pizza in the langar hall, but we're still sitting there. But Bhagat Kabir ji ne ਇਹ ਵੀ ਗੱਲ ਤਾਂ ਹੀ ਉਹਨੇ ਸਪਸ਼ਟ ਕਰ ਦਿੱਤੀ, ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਭਗਤ ਕਬੀਰ ਜੀ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਭੂਖੇ ਭਗਤ ਨਾ ਕੀਜੇ, ਇਹ ਮਾਲਾ ਆਪਣੀ ਲੀਜੇ. ਕਹਿੰਦੇ look, I can't do it because my mind is in food, my mind is in the essentials that I need in life. So there's a stage, there's an avastha, but this is talking about, but when we want to merge into God, then Guru Sahib Ji is saying, man hat kine na payo, then it's not going to be the stubbornness of your mind. But there is a stubbornness that we need to keep in our lives as well, and that's to keep our earth in place. We need to be stubborn and do our Panj Baniya no matter what, whether we want to do them or whether we don't want to do them. That's something that we all need to be stubborn about. We need to be stubborn about whether we want to get up Amrit Vele or not. We've got to have that to think, well, I've got to be stubborn. I can't not get up Amrit Vele. We've got to be stubborn and get up Amrit Vele. We've got to be stubborn and read Panj Baniya and read Rehras and do our Kirtan Swela. But a day will come when, just like Bhagat Sain Ji, that Kirtan hua rehnsabhai, that they don't even realize that they sat all night. You won't even realize that you're getting up in the morning. Reading Panj Baniya will just be like such a flow. You'll just be wanting to do more and more. you'll be gasping for more bani. You'll do your panch bani and you'll feel like you've not even done much yet. You'll beg to the Guru, say, give me more bani to read, give me more bani to read. Do more kripa upon me.